Okay. Well, this is extremely subjective. This is an image I took last week with a guy. We were out shooting for 12 hours and I got my ass sunburned. Not literally my ass. I got sunburned. This is with the medium format Fujifilm GFX. Of all the images I post, this is one that people seem to like the most, if nothing spectacular at all. It's just in Shaker Village, and it's certainly not about this image. I don't know about you. I'm the one always advocating lighting. And there are two trends today, and now we're talking about HDR, okay? We all know about, like, overtly done HDR where everything just looks fake as hell. Whatever someone's personal subjective compositional preferences are, that's perfectly fine. I don't know about you, but maybe I'm old school, or maybe it's just my personal preference. I like shadow because shadow defines as much as lighting defines. When people want to, and I'm the guy that always carries around a speed light when it's like really, really bright outside, and I had two speed lights with me when I was using the GFX. Of course, it never would have illuminated this large area here. But I like shadow. I saw a bunch of really beautiful images on Instagram. I actually like looking at other people's Instagram images. And the stuff that I post is recently, well, much recently. Mediocre at best. I'm not putting that in anybody's images, but I saw a very beautiful image, but you could it's totally fake. I mean, you could have incredible dynamic range, which the GFX has, as well as the Nikon D4, and I have those cameras. And of course, you can compress the dynamic range by, not with this because it's too much unless you got a huge ass studio strobe like this 1300 watt second beast right over here outside of frame to illuminate the hell out of everything, but it just looks so fake. I don't know about you. What's your feeling on this? I actually like shadows. You know, I don't have a problem with shadows. It's like, I'm a big fan of dynamic range, but you know, what the hell, like this. Here's another example I took. It's like, oh my God, look at all that. Oh, you could have brought that shadows out. You know, you could have dragged some sliders in Lightroom or Photoshop. You could have brought it out. What the hell is wrong with shadows? Now, I am kind of in league. I do love subject isolation, meaning shallow depth of field. People say, why do you need that really fast lens? You know, you got a high ISO. I was like, hello, really fast lenses for shallow, it's depth of field control. It's not about, you know, cranking down your ISO. I'm not worried about grainy images. Some of my most favorite images are grainy as hell, taken, you know, 30, 40 years ago by famous photographers. But I have no issue with shadows. I do like shallow depth of field. I mean, I got a lot of really fast lenses. Nikon's new philosophy is with their huge mirrorless Z mount. They're going to be, they've already announced the patent filings for these lenses. They're f0.95, one of them, and the other one is like f1.0 or something like that. Super, super fast lenses for incredible depth of field control, which I do like. You know, I do like opening lenses way the hell up. I like big ass fat glass. Fat, fast glass, because if it's fast, it's also fat. Just like me, right? So I'm kind of in league with the mainstream on that, but I'm not in league with mainstream when it comes to, oh my God, everything got to be lit. You know, you got to drag my sliders in Lightroom. And in fact, what's wrong with this image? You know, you may not like the image, but I like shadows. You know, I like the fact that only this part of the composition is lit. This, of course, is pretty boring. It actually calms me down. When I look at this, to me, it calms me down. I was like, my life is so stressful and fast-paced. Maybe not as fast-paced as yours, but I like this shadow. Shadows define as much as lighting. Lighting define, because the first thing people make a mistake of in the studio is that, and this is what you see when you go to JCPenney or Sears, is they got two studio strobes pointed at a baby or a person, and they never move, ever. You go, BAM! There's no shadows at all. They don't have to worry about shadows under the nose or anything like that. You know, compositional faux pas. They just blast the piss out of everything with light. It's like, yay, you got a nice flat portraiture. You know, it's good for sensor saturation, which makes the image pop. You know, where you got all that intertonal detail, and it makes it really good for black and white photography. But the things that, like sexy curves, like if you got a hot naked bod stretched across the couch, for example, I mean, would you want to blast that with light? No, I want to see the shapes and the curves. You don't see that if you blast everything with light. Someone else, like if someone else, and this is also a GFX shot, someone else stuck this in Lightroom, Photoshop. Like, oh well, you know, I like this shot. I'm gonna get rid of these shadows here, and I don't like the shadows underneath here. And you just end up with this flat-looking image. There's a lot of good sensor saturation in this shot. I always overexpose. I mean, you want to push the limits. This is why um, shooting to the right or going to the point of clipping your nearly, not literally, going to the maximum on sensor saturation is so important. But what the hell is wrong with shadows? Am I the only person that likes shadows? Why the hell? I know I've got another shot here. These are pretty boring shots. So what? You know, I was having a nice day out. And I like the barn here. Someone else would take a look at this shot. And they're like, oh my god, the front of this barn is completely black. I like this shot. This is straight out of camera too, by the way. This lens is the tits. 45 millimeter, 2.8. GFX lens for the medium format Fujifilm. I like shadows. Someone else will be like, oh, I want to make these fences white. Of course, here in the highlights, you have the highlights and you have the midtones and you have the shadows and you have the transition zones between the highlights, the midtones, or the true tonality of whatever it is you're shooting. Because like the true tonality is the white on these fences, like right here, but not the speculars up here. And of course, it's flat white. I mean, they're all pretty much true tonality. But someone else would be dragging the sliders to make even the shadowed part of these fences look white. You know, they bring up the shadows to at least make some of this barn's detail manifest itself. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't look real. Someone took a beautiful photography out in the outdoors, and I was looking at his Instagram, and the images are just amazing. But you can tell because there's no shadows. Everything was just, it was all illuminated. There's several different ways you can actually contract the dynamic range of the shot. You know, dropping a lot of light on it, remove the shadows, or you know, adjusting the shadows and the midtones with your sliders in Lightroom and Photoshop or whatever application it is you use. Is that getting old, or is that the new norm? I don't mean like overdone HDR, okay? I don't mean overdone HDR. And of course, most of these shots are, of course, not dragging sliders. They are exposure bracketing, you know, sitting on a tripod, taking 6 shots, you know, 1 stop under, down to 4 stops under, you know, 3 stops up to capture the shadows, and then combining them in Photoshop. So I know most of them are actually exposure bracketing rather than dragging the sliders, but those images don't look real to me, and even though they're like really, really beautiful images, what do you think? I don't particularly like them, but that's just me, right? Someone just say, that's just you, you know, this is the new thing. Exposure bracketing. Yeah. Exposure bracketing is really important for product photography, but product photography is you give the client what what they want, because that's what the hell they're paying you for. What about the stuff that you shoot? I mean, do you sit on a tripod and do exposure bracketing? You know, I like the shadows. When I actually was standing there taking the shot, I want to have a spontaneous manifestation in my brain of the recollection of standing there and being peaceful and quiet, hearing the birds chirp, you know, no cars and crap noise in the background, and I only get that with the shadows. I don't want to see everything just, wow, like I'm going to set my camera. I didn't bring a tripod. The other guy I was with did bring a tripod. But I don't want to bring a tripod and do exposure bracketing. Nor do I want to drag the piss out of the sliders in Lightroom or Photoshop. Tell me, am I an old fart? Am I old fogey? Or, you know, am I sitting somewhere on the fence like this, too? So I'm like, oh, I don't like those harsh shadows underneath there. You know, I'm going to drag the sliders. I'm going to do some exposure bracketing. Set it on a tripod. I think a lot of people that have the GFX, they think, oh, this is medium format. I got to set it on a tripod. GFX does need a tilt shift perspective control lens, but I don't want to walk around with a tripod with that camera. However, it would make it easier because it has a really big, huge, heavy camera. I like it looking like this. This is actually not the best ideal light because this was shot like 2, 3 p.m., but we were there all day long. I actually like those harsh shadows. I know the best light is morning light and evening light. I know that too. That makes everything look best. Obviously, you're going to say that, and I know that's the case. But here's a lot of shadows. I mean, look, man, the whole bottom of this, you can't see anything. But this is framed to me. You know, this is what I want to see. This is This brings me back to standing there. This is what my eyeballs saw and my memory recalls. So you tell me, am I wrong, or is it just personal preference? There is an underlying psychological je ne sais quoi, the ineffable, that I think that shadows are a good thing, because, you could blast the most beautiful person with tons of light, wraparound light, and it'll be like, it's a beautiful picture, saturated and sharp and everything, but, give me some shadows. Makes the image pop, gives it definition. Because shadows, could be good shadows and early morning light, late evening light, maybe harsh shadows and noonday light, but, shadows are a part of everything. The first mistake people make is they don't bring lighting. And of course, you can't light this crap. It's just too much. Unless I was hauling out there 100 pounds of studio strobes and power packs, which I'm not going to do. First mistake everybody makes is they don't bring any lighting ever to anything. Second mistake that they make is that they bring the lighting, but then they want to blast it all with lighting. Shotgun it all. Boom! It's like, now there's no shadows in the shot at all. It's like, you're right. It's saturated. It's sharp. But it's flat. It's flat like Keira Knightley's chest. Did I say that? I might regret saying that. She's so hot, though, isn't she? So what's your take on shadows? That's my take. Go ahead and crucify me for what I said, Yeah? You're going to crucify me for subjective position taken regarding shadows and the compositional nature of the philosophy of photography? You probably will crucify me. But this is not entirely subjective, but it's primarily subjective. So you tell me what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out, Girl Scout.